Alright guys, such coming again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The OpTic guys respond to the upcoming Proces episode, which is due to break down all of the triumphs and woes that OpTic had the most recent season. Scump reveals exactly when that is due and what it looks like, as many in the community are rather excited for it, but also lots of talk about next year's CDL schedule. Confirmation, it seems, yesterday of what the second event of next season might be, but according to Clayster, rather later than it should be. Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into. Wanted to start actually with this. So Trey came up with his GOAT list, and I think this is pretty damn good. I'm not gonna lie, do I prefer Trey's to mine? I'm not so sure, but I think Trey's done a pretty good job here putting it together. Of course, after the most recent World Championship, it's like, well, things have changed. Things have certainly changed, where you have to consider players like Shotzzy, for example. His top 5 is Kremp, Karma, Scump, Clay, Formal. So pretty similar to most people's top 5. I have Scump second, Karma third. I think you can argue it the other way. Lots of players go Karma second, I think, just because ring count and stuff like that. I think where it gets interesting really is 6 to 10. So just out of interest, this was the one that Lionman put together for my one the other day. I have Shotzzy 5th, Formal 6th, Ake, Simp, Cap, and aBeZy. And I think this is pretty good. My honourable mentions, by the way, were Kenny, Slasher, and aBeZy. Those are my 3 honourable mentions. The other ones that Trey puts in are aBeZy, Octane, and Slasher, so, you know, pretty similar on that front. But he's got aBeZy outside of the top 10. I think that's probably the most interesting thing here. Simp versus Eggs, we talked about it the other day. You know, you can have a big debate on that, but I think Shotzzy above Simp is definitely fair. I mean, people would argue it a couple of different ways, but I just think Simp's record in the biggest tournaments over the last few years just hasn't quite been good enough. And of course, if that's true for Simp, then it's also true for aBeZy. The reason why I had Simp in, I think, 8th and then aBeZy in 10th was because I don't know, I didn't want to put Simp and aBeZy too far apart from each other because, yeah, I think Simp's been better, but in the grand scheme of things, you know, having Simp 7th and aBeZy effectively 11th felt a bit much for me, but I definitely can see the argument here. I think, again, there's going to be talk about Cap and old Jacob in the top 10 again. Is that, you know, is that fair? Is that justified? Look, I personally think it is. There's a couple of angles on this. JCap was considered, just from like an individual perspective, to be pretty much the best player in Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare 2, way back in the day, before the CDL got especially serious, or, you know, the COD competitive scene got especially serious. And of course you can say, oh, well, it doesn't count, he was playing against plumbers and all this, and there's always going to be that level of era debate. But in addition to Cap, for a time, being the most talented, best player in COD, which he was for a period a very long time ago, he then, during the Jetpack era, which could be considered the most skillful era, whatever you want to say, yeah, was Cap the best player on those teams in Advanced Warfare, in Black Ops 3, in Infinite Warfare, that made 3 consecutive World Championship finals. Cap had won 2 of them. No, but he was obviously a crucial part of those successes, right? So I think from Cap's perspective, he not only has the period of individual dominance, whatever you want to say about it, but he also has phenomenal team success as well. And, you know, there's just not too many other players that you can put ahead of Cap based on, you know, what I would consider the GOAT list to be. So I still think Cap is about 9th. I think this is fair. And then Kenny in 10th. I had Kenny 11th in mine and aBeZy 10th. I think you can definitely see it the other way around as well. So, yeah, I like what Trey's put together. Pretty difficult to critique too much of this, I think, but intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Now, this is a big deal. Yesterday, DreamHack confirmed an event in Birmingham. So many of you guys were out there in Dallas back at the end of May for DreamHack Dallas, obviously, and that was when the 4th Call of Duty major transpired. Now, there was a rumour for a little while that DreamHack was going to do another Call of Duty event next season, which makes perfect sense. I think this will be a thing probably every year now. Adam Apasada was involved in, well, he is involved in DreamHack. We know that he's been heavily involved in COD. It seems like a bit of a no-brainer to combine a COD event with a DreamHack probably every single year at some point. There were rumours that DreamHack Stockholm, coming up at the end of November, could potentially be featuring a kickoff event for the Call of Duty League. That no longer looks like it's going to be happening, but they did confirm yesterday a DreamHack event in Birmingham at the NEC in the UK, not in Alabama, at the end of March. So there's obviously, as it was in Dallas, going to be all sorts going on there. There's going to be the conventions, all the things. I mean, you guys can see the videos on the screen now in the NEC, which is just like a big convention hall, basically, kind of similar to where things were hosted out in Dallas, which is one of the reasons why Birmingham for this type of event makes a lot of sense, because you can have that like major, massive space and arena without necessarily paying London prices, and you can do all these things under the same roof, which is not necessarily possible if you're running a single Call of Duty event in a single arena such as the Copper Box in London, as we know. So this is one of the reasons why this is the case, but it's still pretty interesting because a COD event alongside this, is there going to be Counter-Strike there as well? I think Adam Apicella briefly tweeted yesterday, hey, DreamHack Birmingham confirms, you know, what events do you want to see there? Then I think that was deleted because we're pretty sure Call of Duty here is going to be a thing, and it is indeed on the dates that we thought that it would be. So Birmingham, UK, second event we think of the season, potentially at the end of March, and this is the pretty controversial thing about it. There are all these ticket prices for this. I think for the DreamHack one in Dallas, there was like the standard price, and then if you also wanted access to go and, you know, watch the Call of Duty stuff, that was an additional kind of add-on on top of that. And look, from an economical perspective, this makes a lot of sense. The first Call of Duty event I ever went to was CWL Birmingham at the NEC, this exact arena, back in 2018, and it was Insomnia 62 was the convention that was happening at the time there. This is a very similar approach. So it does make an awful lot of sense. The tickets are on, you know, on sale basically in due course, but that's going to be a little while away now. There is talk, of course, about whether the event should be in Birmingham if you're going to do it in the UK. Look, the NEC and the surrounding area, there's some hotels, there's like, I remember, there's like, I don't know if it's still there, there's a Nando's in the convention bit, like just across from the convention hall, and you guys know what these American players were like about the Nando's back in the day. They were like, that place was full of these players, I could not believe my eyes. There's a casino there, there's hotels, like, you know, it's a decent little spot, so, you know, it's like all cities, there's good parts, there's bad parts. Would I prefer it to be in Manchester or London? Yes, but it is what it is. It's obviously not far for me to go, so can't complain too much about that. But the big frustration I think that I have about this is actually when it is, right? Because until yesterday this was rumoured, but it wasn't yet confirmed, and it's now confirmed that this will be the, well, we think it's the second event of the season, and we've got the date now, right? It is March 27th to the 29th, 2026, which is late, right? Like, that is extremely late for a second event of the season. But it was the same issue we ran into last year. This is the problem, right? Yeah, you gain economies of scale doing DreamHacks because you combine your event with theirs, but you are also very dependent on when they run their events. And therefore, the CDL has to design their entire season schedule around effectively what DreamHack are doing, which is significantly problematic. Like, it affected things last year. We probably should have had a longer Major 3, Major 4 cycles with minor tournaments in there as well, but that didn't happen because they had to hit the date for Major 4 at the end of May. And this time it's a similar story. Major 1 we think is going to be in Toronto. Rumour has it end of January, start of February. And then what, we've got another 7 weeks until the second event of the season at the end of March. That's got to be like the latest second event of the season, if it is the second event that we've ever had. Does Certa imply that's the case? Major 3, if I had to guess, you'd think it would be in Dallas, right? And then Champs, there are some rumours about potentially Vegas. Major 4, maybe Paris. So anyway, this is now a significant step further to being the reality based on what we've just seen announced. Look, in my ideal world, and this is very much wishful thinking, but we need to have an event before Christmas. There needs to be, as there was with Raleigh a couple of years ago, a pro-am event before Christmas. It just makes way too much sense. I don't know why we don't do it. We'll see. I'll share what Clayster has to say on this in a second, because it does frustrate me kind of a lot. But in my ideal scenario, we have some sort of qualifiers or something leading up to Christmas, a major tournament before Christmas happens, then a couple of weeks off, January comes around, a few more qualifiers. I'm even in favour of no qualifiers at all and just run minor tournaments every weekend, and the seeding is determined by the minor tournaments. You know, I much prefer a minor tournament weekend that we most recently had this past season. At least there's a winner, right? Than just random league matches that lose their appeal, in my opinion, rather swiftly. But that to one side, ideally, first event before Christmas. Second event, what, end of January? Third event, I think, should be about the 10th of March, in an ideal world, right? Like, you do roughly 5 weeks between major tournaments, in an ideal world, right? You get a week off after the major, 3 weeks of qualifiers, back to a new major. So I would have third event about the 10th of March, which is way before the second event of what we think is going to be this upcoming season. I would do the fourth event in the middle of April, fifth event at the end of May, and then the sixth event I would do at the start of maybe July as the world. I mean, ideally you have another major, but let's say there's just 5 majors, those ones I mentioned. You then do the World Cup right at the start of July, and then you do champs shortly after that. I mean, that would be my optimal solution, but of course that's never going to happen, right? So, you know, I guess we'll just leave it there. But I will share what Claystar had to say on this, because when I mentioned this in the video the other day, someone put the question to Clay, and he was like, yeah, this is a problem with the scheduling that it would be nice to solve, but it's clearly something that's frustrating him and frustrating many of us as fans as well.
What do you think about Major 2 possibly being the end of March and TacticalRab talking about it today? Dude, it's been a problem forever. COD has the most hype at the beginning of the game. We need to be running the league in tournaments as soon as possible. But the way it works with the CDL is like, bro, they don't even have venues booked and shit yet. Like, every time we ask for like schedules, the next season isn't planned until like Major 3 and 4 aren't planned like fully booked out when Major 1 and 2 are like happening. Like, that's why we ended up in a college fucking D3 college gymnasium. Like, we need shit to be popping beginning of the year. Major 2 being March is insane. We need more matches in general. Schedule on is shit.
When are we getting the process? I don't know, bro. I don't know. All I can say, all that I do know, I went in for content yesterday. It's why I wasn't live. You guys are going to be very, very, very happy when you get it. Let's just say that. It's worth the wait. Trust me. I mean, I saw the runtime on that thing. You guys are going to be like, what the fuck? I can't imagine having to sort through all of that footage. Tiff, I don't. See, my brain trying to piece together all of that and make it make sense, chronological order, make it like a story, because you got to like tell the story of the entire season, the highs, the lows. I mean, bro, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, because think about how much film footage there is of like just the year, and then you got to put all that together. It's a lot, but you guys will be very happy with it. I could say that for sure. I've seen like snippets of it, and it's fucking fire, dude. Gives me goosebumps still just thinking about it. Thinking about the year.
Everyone's looking forward to the process, no doubt about that. There will be some questions on, oh, is it too late? Is the hype for the process gone, right? Because it does feel like quite a long time ago now, because it is that OpTic won the World Championship, they won the World Cup. I think the process was, I mean, wasn't it set to be out in like August time? But then because they won the World Cup, they decided, well, we've kind of got to include that as well. So then we thought, all right, it'll probably take another couple of weeks to splice that in. But it's actually been pretty much a month, I think, since the process was meant to be released, and probably they've added some new elements in there as well, and it makes a lot of sense. Look, I'm sure it's going to be a great piece of content. I do wonder exactly what we are going to get to see. We're definitely going to get to see a lot of the frustrations behind the scenes at OpTic last season, some of the arguments, right? I mean, Shotzzy even, I think, said it on stream the other day, that, you know, if you thought some of the clips from some of these other teams in their behind-the-scenes documentaries were bad, wait until you see the process, right? Like, things got pretty spicy, I'm sure, behind the scenes at OpTic. I wonder whether we'll get anything new. This is an old picture, by the way. This is from like a couple of years ago, 2023, which is why Shotzzy looks a bit younger than he does today, but I thought it was a relevant tweet regardless. Don't know if we're going to get any information on Prayer to what happened there. I mean, it would be great if they threw us like at least a little bone as to what happened at the start of the season. I don't know how likely that really is, but we'll see. In addition to what Scump said, I don't have a clip of it, but apparently last night on stream, some of you guys might have been watching, said that Shotzzy on stream said that the process is basically like nearly done, right? So I'm pretty sure, I mean, Scump says it's nearly done, it's not far away. Apparently Shotzzy has echoed a similar assessment as well. So it will be here in due course. It's going to be exciting to kind of relive the season because, yeah, you're not going to find more remarkable storylines than that really in the esports world at all, let's be honest here, right? But yeah, people will say, oh, did it take too long? If Hitch was still making it like he did with Vision back in the day, it would have arrived sooner than now. But enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Just one final thing, thought this is interesting we put together. Most common grand finals matchups. So the top 5 most common grand finals matchups all feature FaZe, but remarkably enough, outside of FaZe versus Thieves, where FaZe leads the head-to-head 3-2 in the 5 grand finals they have played, they actually have a losing record against most. Against Toronto, when they're in finals, they've played 4 finals. Toronto won 3 of them. Against Dallas Empire back in the day, it was 2-2. Against New York Subliner, it was 2-1 to Subliners. Against Florida, it was 2-1 to them. And then, actually, no, it wasn't even the top 5, it was the top 6. OpTic are on the left-hand side here. I don't know, aesthetically, this looks a bit strange, but whatever. And, you know, FaZe against Surge as well. They played a couple of grand finals. There is an interesting one, OpTic versus New York. People are like, when did that happen? But it's actually going back to the Modern Warfare days of Subliners versus Huntsmen, so kind of considering that in the same category, which makes sense that OpTic, Texas, Huntsman kind of consider the same thing here. But thought this is pretty interesting to look back on. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.